If you're wanting to buy a subject to deal in this market, I'm talking about keeping a 2, 3, or 4% interest loan that the seller has, keeping it in place, buying the deal and making it make sense. Again, with those numbers, it is imperative that you learn how to do those deals safely. Just watching a YouTube video a few times won't help. And guys, I'm telling you, there's even a lot of folks out there teaching about subject to that they don't know how to do them safely. I've been an experienced creative investor for years now, and it is painfully obvious that there's a lot of folks who are doing these deals wrong. We're seeing it across the nation. I'm definitely seeing it in my backyard. And so I am actually, because of everything that I'm seeing, the defaults, the subject to defaults where investors bought deals they should have never bought in the first place, all of these things, I'm calling an emergency masterclass on the topic of how to do a subject to deal safely. It's going to be August 17th, 2024 in New Orleans, and it's going to be a more intimate setting, kind of like a masterclass mastermind, where it's going to be in a house, not a big hotel room. And guys, it's important that you learn how to do these deals safely. My goal is to get you in there for an entire day, teach you as much as I possibly can, and give you a manual to walk away with. If you're interested in more information on how to do these deals safely, go ahead, go to CourtneyFricke.com for more information, or DM me the word subject to masterclass. Y'all stay safe out there. Hey, welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Fricke. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, you guys. Welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm excited, Chris. I know we've known each other for a few years now, especially both being in the Louisiana market. And so I'm looking forward to, introducing folks to you, but also just jumping into this conversation. So how about you introduce yourself to folks? Tell us like what you do, where you're based out of, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you. I've been, I think you came to one of my first masterminds 3 or 4 years ago. That's when I first met you. Based out of Lafayette, Louisiana, 43 years old, 5 kids, been married for 22 years, same one for 26 years, been an entrepreneur for 20 years. Started my first business at 22 out of the back of my truck, changing oil, washing cars when I was in college.
Yeah.
Always had a knack for, or a drive and motivation to want to make money.
Yeah.
Right. And I was hard-headed and I couldn't hold down a job. I'm unemployable because I'm so hard-headed. Want to do what I want to do, right? Which a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, have that same. You probably like that.
Yeah.
We want a better life than what society kind of offers as a 9-to-5 or a W-2 job. And I knew I couldn't get that with just a regular job, and pursued the entrepreneur career while I was in college and started a business out of the back of my truck. Took that on-site oil change business and ended up diversifying. By the time I was a senior in college, I was doing auto glass, windshield repair, tire rotations. I was washing and waxing, and I was changing oil. And I picked up a ton of fleet accounts around the Lafayette area with all the oil field accounts. I made $127,000 my senior year while I was doing that, while I was doing school. So when I graduated, I was like, I'm not going to get a job.
Sure.
I'm going to keep doing that. And that's not really even what I wanted to do. I just wanted to start a business. So that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
Did that for about 8 months after I graduated college. And I realized it wasn't scalable, chasing around, people on site, time restriction. I got another truck and trailer. So I scaled it to 2 trucks and trailers, but I was like, man, this is not scalable. Making good money. I told myself I need a physical location. I need to buy some real estate. So started putting feelers out at Quick Lubes and ended up finding somebody that was a motivated landlord of a tenant they were renting the Quick Lube mechanic shop to that wasn't paying rent on time.
Yep.
And I got wind of it. So I went and talked to her. Her name was, matter of fact, Madeline Bustani. And sweet old lady. And I ended up talking to her and said, hey, I heard he's not paying on time. And she kicked him out and put me in. So sees an opportunity from a motivated landlord that tenant wasn't paying rent on a commercial property. That was my first shop. Then doubled my income right away.
Yeah, because people were coming to you versus you going to them.
Yes. We're doing, and I'm still offering on-site oil change. Then I was like, okay, I did that for about a year. I was like, I want to shop.
Yeah.
put some more feelers out, figured out another guy wasn't paying his taxes and he was on all kind of drugs on a really desirable location here on Johnson Street in Lafayette, and caught wind that he was about to go under. So I went and talked to him and said, hey man, why don't you sell it to me? I already know you're about to go under.
Yeah.
And ended up finding somebody else is actually outbidded me on the deal, and I offered $100,000 more. Once I found out just because I wanted it so bad. He owner financed that extra $100,000 because it didn't even appraise. I paid over retail for it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it was such a good location. I knew I could make it. I was real good at sales. I was crushing with the other shop. Got my second shop. Now you probably asking, I bought that second shop.
So the first one you were a tenant, the second one
I bought.
You bought it. Now, was it all with owner financing or
No,
only part?
Only $100,000. The purchase price was $860,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I got an SBA loan. I had to put $127,000 down. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
By the grace of timing, the sun, moon, and stars lined up. This is 3 months before the 2008 crash. I put my personal house for sale. I sold it 3 months before the 2008 crash. I made $126,000, $1,000 less than what I needed for the down payment.
I can scrounge up 1,000.
Yeah, I got 1,000. So I don't know, that just worked out beautifully. I put it for sale. It sold 30 days later. Then 2 months later, the market crashed. It's probably worth $60,000 less than what I sold it to that guy for.
Yeah.
But I got my shop, bought a foreclosure, lived in that, rehabbed that, lived in that, I think 16, 18 months, flipped that, made $70,000, used that for another down payment for a shop. And I did that 4 times. Then I flipped another piece of property, made 40 grand. I kept flipping real estate to buy quick lube mechanic shops. So that was the kind of the first 5 years of my entrepreneur career.
Sure. So you're sitting there. So you're obviously seeing the impact of business, but business done in the right scalable way, right? Because if you would have only ever stayed going to people's, going to them, you wouldn't have reached that. And then, all right, so then you get, the brick and mortars, right? You're getting the shops. And then you're starting to see the power of a motivated person, right?
Yep.
And then you're starting to see the power of what real estate can do, mostly the shops or your primary residence, right?
Yep. The name of the game's motivated seller. That's not just in real estate. I was doing this game back before anybody talked about it. I just naturally go find the motivated seller means opportunity.
Look, absolutely. And at the end of the day, I mean, there's always going to be some type of opportunity in a marketplace, any different industry. You just have to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah.
We call it motivated seller, and we know it's, people who are behind their taxes, about to go bankrupt, foreclosure, all those things. But any industry someone's in, you can find that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's across the board. And just to preface that, so I did that for the first 5 years. I scaled up to 4 locations, had 33 employees. We're doing probably about $3 million in revenue between the 4 shops, $2.5, $3 million bucks, and scaled that for a little while. Got so focused on that, started making a lot of money. I was 26 years old, making $500,000 bucks a year. It was good money for me back then. I was like, well, I kind of forgot about real estate, right?
Sure.
Although I was a real estate investor because I owned all the shops I was in. The first shop that I ended up leasing, 2 years later, she ended up selling it to me and I bought it. So I owned all 4 of my locations, which is key for you guys listening, is if you can own the real estate and the business on top of it.
Well, and that's where, McDonald's and all them, so many of them are so powerful because they've included the real estate in that.
That's exactly right.
They've realized the power of those prime locations though too.
Yep. And that's what I did. And I did that for probably till 2011. 2010, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was like, man, this makes a lot of sense.
I just started thinking about real estate.
Yeah. But this is...
You'd already been doing things, and then you finally decided to pick a book. It's funny, most people pick up the book first.
Correct. Somebody gave me the book. One of my sister's boyfriends gave me the book, and I was like, man, this makes complete sense. I already do this naturally.
Yeah.
But it re-ingrained, I need to get into real estate more. So went and I was like, I want to get more real estate. So ended up going buy a bunch of single family homes off of MLS with a realtor.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing. I made tons of offers with a realtor, and I got okay deals, right? Yeah. I was, trying to do direct to seller. Well, I didn't even understand what direct to seller marketing was back then. Bought 33 single family homes, probably overpaid for them. Bought them at like 80 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
And that's really not a good deal at 80 cents on the dollar.
Right.
People think that's a good deal. It's not. because the market pulled back.
Sure.
I ended up buying 33 single family homes from 2012 to 2014. The market in 2014 crashed in Lafayette because oil went from $128 a barrel to $28 a barrel, and all these houses that I had went damn near.
Because all your tenants were in oil and gas.
They
Here
all-
in Louisiana, it's a very prominent, but especially in
this
different parts
area.
over here.
Yeah, they all lost their job. Half my tenants went vacant right away. So that was a big down moment for me. I was like, oh man. And I bought a nice house. I bought like $150,000, $200,000 house that I can get $1,500 to $2,000 a month. That was a mistake. It was too high end. In addition to that, all of my oil field accounts that I had in the oil field,
Yep, with your quick lube.
quick lubes, they started going down. So I was losing $20,000 a month and went, yeah. And then I didn't tell my wife. We had like our third or fourth kid, and there's no way I could tell her this. But we were thinking we were gonna go bankrupt. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I was like, man, real estate got me to where I'm at. Let me go back, and I'm doing something wrong. So I went on YouTube and I started typing in real estate investing, just watching tons of videos. And this one black guy, Nassaro, I think his name.
Yeah. He's up the guru.
I'm not a guru, I'm a duru.
Yes.
I'll never forget that. And he's riding around neighborhoods showing checks. I just made 30 grand.
Yeah.
I don't even own, I never bought this house. I just flipped the paper. I was like, wholesale real estate? How the hell are you wholesale real estate? So ended up watching all his videos, like, man, there's something in this. I actually understood the process by watching enough YouTube University, and I wholesaled some of my properties and made like 1,000. As a matter of fact, the first deal I made 2,500. It was on the house that I had bought. I made 2,500 wholesaling it. I was like, okay, this is a real thing. So I hired a mentor. Actually, I hired 3 mentors back to back to back. The first mentor stole $50,000 from me. I had him arrested. He went to jail. He got on drugs.
You had found him. Let's deep dive that. You'd found him online on YouTube.
YouTube. Yep.
So I think a lot of people are seeing that right now in this market. I literally just got back. I was out of town, and again, another person told me another story of someone that is going under. And back in the day when I was doing a ton of wholesaling myself, and I was spending 30 grand a year to be in masterminds, a lot of those folks aren't in the game right now. And so this guy was someone that you found online. He was doing a lot of marketing and branding. What do you think is something that people should, like, how do they vet the people they learn from?
This is such an extremely important question, because I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, from empirical evidence, there are very few people online that are good at branding and are actually good entrepreneurs.
Yeah, right.
They don't do both well.
Exactly. And then a lot of times people will see someone and they'll say, well, they don't have a social media account. They can't be real. They can't be good.
Those are the best entrepreneurs.
Well, that's part of my heart with my podcast, is to have conversations. 90+% of my conversations are with people who don't have social media accounts, don't have a YouTube account. And it's like, I want to show you that, like, hey, people can be brilliant and like fantastic investors, entrepreneurs, but not have some huge following. And people disregard that all the time. Oh, well, I can't go look them up and they have, 1 million
That's right.
followers.
Yep.
And so, but we're seeing that right now.
We are.
I mean, we're seeing Ponzi schemes being discovered. It feels like weekly and monthly at this point.
Yep. It's because they made a full-time living coaching, and in the market, the coaching space pulled back because real estate's down, and they didn't have a real business.
Yeah.
And they're hurting. So, I mean, you have to understand that, there's a lot of good information with coaches out there.
Yeah.
But man, you got to really dig deep and make sure that they're not just fly-by-night entrepreneurs.
One of the biggest things that at least when it comes to this, I've always just said, be careful with what metric you're attracted to.
Yeah.
If the metric you're attracted to is, I've got thousands of properties and I have this Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Careful. Because I was just talking about this with someone. I said, look, if someone said I have 500 doors and all they're doing is showing me their Rolex and this and that, okay, are you impressed? But the question is, what if every single one of those doors were losing $300 a month, or half of them were vacant? And there's a reality there. It's, again, careful what metric you qualify someone with. And people just don't know how to, it boils down, people don't know how to do due diligence. It's the idea that all Americans don't read. They don't read what they sign. They don't ask a second question. They kind of take things at face value.
They don't do critical thinking,
No.
and they believe everything everybody says.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because a lot of people on social media are just absolutely full of shit.
Absolutely.
And I know most of them. I
Yeah.
speak on stages with most of them, and I know for the past 6, 7 years I spoke with them. I told my wife, I said, a lot of these guys that up on the stage I spoke with, they all full of shit. I can just tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like I'm an entrepreneur. I know, like it's too flashy.
Yeah.
It's too scripted. It's too rah rah. Look at me. And don't get me wrong, I'm on social media too,
Right.
and I have a brand too. So I'm not saying it in all cases, but it's bad.
It is. And so that's something I think people have to recognize is like if you don't want to be vulnerable to getting, got like but we're all susceptible to
We
it,
are.
right? And it's one of those things is like saying, hey,
My first mentor. I'm not. I'm saying this because I got
Mhm.
had. I mean, 50 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of money, and I got back half of it, but the other half I couldn't get back. But yeah, it's really bad.
But there's a ton of power into it. I am not where I am today if it wasn't for my
Yes.
mentors and how I've continued to educate myself. So it's
Yep.
huge. All right, so you hired your first mentor, you had that, but look, you stayed in. Some people would take that and that blow to the gut would take them out.
Yep.
But somehow during that time, and especially was that still the time when the market was really tough and you were struggling?
For which
Because you
section?
were saying, all right, so all your rentals, you were,
Two
having
thousand.
issues. That
Yeah.
2011, 2014,
Yeah.
you had,
For people that are not from Louisiana, or from people, if you're gonna think 2008 was not a bad time where I lived.
Mhm.
We actually crushed it because the oil
Well, it
field was
was
booming.
Katrina as well, though.
Yeah.
So Katrina hit, and a lot of people flooded different
Yes.
markets with insurance money,
Yeah.
all that. So we had a bit of an insulation down here.
Yeah. 2008 for us was good. 2014 for this area, Lafayette in Texas, we got crushed.
Yeah.
So that was my 2008. That was when things started going bad. That's when I got into wholesaling. It forced me to pivot because I had all these shops. I had bought some rental properties, slow money real estate rental properties. Thought I bought a bunch of rental properties and to solve all my problems.
Yeah.
It's fine when they're all rented until they, one moves out and you get back to it and it's got $5,000 worth of damage
Right.
and then on top of that the all field crashes and half of them go empty. I had to make a move because I was running out of money. So I pivoted to wholesaling.
Yeah.
2014, I slayed it because the market was so inducive for motivated sellers because people
Right.
were losing their houses.
So the market changed.
The market changed,
Yep.
but interest rates were still low back then.
Yeah.
2014. So
Yeah.
the market pulled back. There was not as many jobs, but the interest rate's still low, so you still could get a job. So it wasn't that bad. And I started making. I remember I made $47,000 after I hired my second mentor, just putting out bandit signs back in 2014. And I told myself I felt like I was doing something illegal
Yeah.
because, like, how many brake jobs, tune-ups, oil changes, and windshields I got to change
Exactly.
to make $47,000, and I knew I was in the wrong business. That next day when I got that check, I went and had a meeting with all my shop managers. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm not working over here no more. I'm going," because I did that part time. I was still running my shop, putting out a bandit sign, making calls, changing oil,
Right.
brake jobs, and I told them I'm not coming back here unless somebody
figure it out. Yeah.
y'all got to figure it out. Don't call me unless somebody dies. So
Yeah.
I went full time, and wholesaling kept me from going bankrupt in 2014. I should have went bankrupt in
Yeah.
2014.
But that fast money
Yeah.
was able, and look, and part of that was trying to piece that timing. So you lost that 50 grand from that one coach
Yep.
right around that time when you were close to the edge. And so, but you stayed with it, right?
Yep.
And so, okay, so you get that, you see, hey, this fast money is
Yep.
really working for you. Let's kind of fast forward to from then more into your journey about where you are today.
Yep.
What does that look like? So you started wholesaling, went full time.
Went full time. I started making, 50, 60, 80, 100, six figures months. And I was able to paper over my losses for my shops. And that saved me from going bankrupt.
Right.
I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't because I was still rolling over 20, 40 grand just to support my shops with my notes. Because I owned all these properties. I had notes. And then finally I put them all for sale. I ended up selling most of them. I still have one today. And made a big rip. A big national all chain bought me out. I made a lot of money on one deal. Matter of fact, I used that money to buy my beach house in Destin, Florida.
Yeah.
Got rid of all those shops, and then went full time, highly focused on real estate because I knew I wasn't going back to the shops no matter what. And I started flipping houses.
Yeah.
Then I started learn how to raise private money. Then I started buying mobile home parks.
Yeah.
And then now I'm developing neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But I'm still doing all the other stuff. I'm still wholesaling, flipping.
Yeah.
I'm still raising private money. I'm still buying. I bought a mobile home park last week, a 67 unit in Brookhaven, Mississippi, and now I'm developing neighborhoods. And Patty's getting a GC license, and we're working that progression like I talk about. I created
Let's
this.
talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the fast,
Yes.
medium, and slow money, because I think people's philosophies are huge. How you approach real estate, because a lot of people, they're just like, oh, well, let me just go. I want to buy some real estate this year. I'm like, hey, that's
Yep.
not. You got to get clear on your understanding how
Yep.
you're approaching it. So what's this philosophy?
Well, it's logic. It's not even my philosophy. It's basic logic. And if I like to think, an old wise man once told me, think in gradient scales when you do something. You shouldn't go from, not know anything about real estate to trying to buy a 100-unit apartment complex.
Right.
I don't believe. I like a lot of people talk. I don't believe in that philosophy. Like,
Well, but the thing about it, if you go to the gym, haven't ever lifted, I used to power lift, basic CrossFit. If you go in and you've never lifted before, and you're like, hey, this 500-pound squat, let me go do it. Yeah, you're gonna die. Like you're
that's
gonna
right.
get hurt.
You're gonna get hurt. And that is where I came up with this philosophy, and I had to organize this data to make it make sense for me and to make it more understandable for my students, so that they could go up the ladder of ascending, from starting from where they are to where they should be. And I had to break it down into smaller bit pieces. So I start off with, well, what is the velocity of this money that I'm getting paid, and why am I not making money when I buy a bunch of rental properties?
Yeah.
Thinking that I could just sell all. I thought you just buy a bunch of rental properties and you just retire.
Exactly.
It's
You can be passive income, right?
passive income. And I was like, either they full of shit, I ain't doing something right, or something's off.
Right.
So I just started doing research, and I stopped listening to everybody. That's one thing I stopped research, because everybody has to do this. I'm like, something ain't right. So I stopped listening to them. I'm like, okay, buying rental property to start off with is not the best advice, unless you have a ton of cash and you need to park your cash. So I'm like, okay, what's the velocity of money? You got fast money, which is what? Stuff that transact on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis.
Sure.
That's going to be a W-2. That's going to be a job. That's going to be a small business. That's going to be wholesaling. Yeah. That transacts on typically a 2 to 4 week period, wholesaling. Then you got medium velocity of money. That usually transacts on a 3 to 6 month basis. That's what? Flipping. Yeah. Small land deals. That's a business that maybe, that transacts every 3 months. You get paid every 3 months on a job. And then I'm like, okay, what's slow money? Slow money is what? Rental property, buying whole rental property, land development. People, you might not get paid for a year to 2 years on a land development job. Yeah. The problem is, a lot of people start off with slow money thinking that's going to solve all their problems, and it doesn't, until they got their fast money going. And then I had to break it down again. So you got fast, medium, and slow money. Now, what order of importance should you do this to where it builds on itself? Just like when you go to school and you learn the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, that's the fundamental foundation to learning what? Words, syllables, sure. Multiplication, division, but you have to learn the basics. So what's the basics in real estate? How to find a deal. Yeah. That is the fundamental piece of real estate. If you don't know how to buy a deal, if you go try to buy a buy and hold property because you told you got to buy assets, but you don't buy super discounted with a lot of equity, because when cash flow doesn't work, what saves you? Equity. Like
with your B-class rentals or whatever you had, right? You were buying it, at 80%, but in a market that got really hit, right? But you were buying it with that. You were buying them
at almost at 100% when the market pulled back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, were you leveraged?
Yeah, but I had put 20% down.
Yeah, so you're buying, okay. And so, but a huge part of that, and that leverage that's impacted, right? So yep. Especially when you're buying overpaying.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I had to think. I was like, well, shit. If I'm buying rental properties and I'm not buying them cheap enough because I didn't learn elementary school the fundamentals, right. How to find a deal. How do you find a deal? Right. You do direct to seller marketing. Elementary school in real estate is direct to seller marketing. How to find deals off market, direct to seller from a motivated seller, direct mail, cold calling, PPC, SEO, Facebook ads, bandit signs, driving for dollars, all the things that we teach in wholesaling. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a badass investor, if you master how to find deals and you can steal deals legally, morally, and ethically, and I steal deals legally, morally, and ethically damn near every other day through direct to seller marketing, everything else, buy and hold, flipping, land development, works itself out, because if I mess up, I have a bunch of equity.
Right.
You see that? That is the fundamental
Well,
piece.
and that's huge. So, and that's right now in this market, we're seeing so many people who didn't buy a good deal, right?
Yep.
And, because again, the market's changing now here in 2024. But, and one of the things we're talking about is you've got to be very, very careful, because if you buy a great deal, and for something like right now, the insurance crisis in Louisiana, that's taking great deals and bumping it down to a good deal.
Yep.
But then what's happened to all the people who just only bought a good deal? It's now getting bumped down to a bad deal.
Yep.
Right. And so we're seeing so many people whose bad deals are getting fleshed out, and the good market saved them before,
Yeah.
but now it's not saving them.
You got to become a unicorn chaser.
Mhm.
Only buy unicorns.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy. That's why people, I say, if you can't steal it legally, morally, and ethically, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
It's not being harsh or taking advantage of people. No, it's called good business practices.
Well, it's knowing how to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm still here, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yes.
So elementary school is wholesaling, which is fast money.
Yeah.
So you got fast, medium, and slow money. The next evolution, once you learn how to wholesale, you need to naturally, everybody thinks it's flipping. It's not flipping. It's raising private money.
Mm.
That's junior high. Because another big mistake I made, and this is all from mistakes, by the way, how I built this. I used all my own money to start flipping. I didn't raise money because I was too egotistical and arrogant to ask.
Not going to owe anyone anything.
I'm not going to owe it. And what it was ego and a lack of just like, who's going to give me money, and self-esteem. Like, who's going to give me money? It was both. It was back and forth. So I was like, I used all my money to flip properties, and I was like, man, I got all this money out. I'm broke again. Back to the drawing table. What did I mess up on? I'm using my own money.
Yeah.
OPM.
Yeah.
That's your next evolution to junior high. Learn how to raise private money. And guess what? When you know how to find good deals from elementary school, it's not hard to raise private money.
Well, and I think that's critical, because one of my biggest regrets is that I wholesaled away from my family, my estate, the best deals, when I didn't have the ability, the skill to raise private money. I have one deal that, like, if I ever want to motivate myself, I go look and see what it's worth. I should have 1000% contracted that deal. It's worth probably 280 today. I had it under contract at 93,000. It needed 15 in work. I should have taken that. But
Yep.
because I didn't know how to raise, and especially longer term private money,
Yep.
and it was huge. And that's the deal that, like, pissed me off enough that I started to learn how to do creative financing and private money.
It messes you up if you don't learn that skill.
Yeah.
It is the natural progression.
Yeah.
Wholesaling, which is direct to seller marketing, raise private money, because then you can start cherry picking from your wholesaling business and start flipping the best deals. How many deals have you ever wholesaled to somebody? 6 months later, they give you a high five. Say, hey, thank you, Courtney.
Right.
You wholesaled me that deal. I made $100,000 on it.
Yeah.
That was
Exactly. Or the ones that they wholesale it, and you're like,
didn't do anything to it.
yeah, like,
it made
that should've been
60.
me. Yeah.
That happened. I'm like, that ain't gonna happen anymore. So that forced me to stop using my own money, and then almost going, having cash flow problems, because I had all my cash out flipping, and then two, realizing that I could do way more flips if I'm not using my own money, and I sleep better at night.
Exactly. And there's something about when you're using someone else's money that there's a level of accountability.
Yes.
For most people, we'll put a little asterisk there, for most people, because when I got started, I was using a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. And that thing, I didn't have anyone. No one was vetting the deal. It was just me using it like cash, right? But then when I started using private money, my deals got so much better, because I had so much, again, that it could vary by person, but like, I was like, look, I'm not going to use someone's money unless I know that this is a great deal.
Yep.
And then when the private money lenders, they saw it, they're like, oh yeah, I'll definitely lend on that. Yeah.
Yep. So wholesaling, raising private money, flipping is high school. A lot of people start off with flipping,
Yeah.
and then they buy from wholesalers, and then they find out the wholesalers are making more money than they are on flips.
Yeah.
You see how all this is stacked? I'm being long-winded because I want you to see the gradient scale of how this stacks fundamentally, and it makes sense logically. Now, once you're flipping and you're raising private money, there's even another tertiary level to the raising private money. Once you get really comfortable raising private money and you've been doing it for a year or two and you've been paid back all your investors, you get really comfortable with investors and they just like giving you money. And that's when you can really get slick like I've done. And I put all of my interest on the back end. I don't even service the debt until it sells. Because that was another thing. I leveraged out. I had like 25 flips going and I was writing checks on interest. I had to hire an extra girl in the office just to keep up with checks. So sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 people in a deal for one deal times 25 deals. So I was writing 100 checks a month, 75 checks a month. It was too much to keep up with. And a lot of money was going out every month in interest. $25,000 a month was going out in interest. So then that made me do another thing where I started, hey, Mr. Vett,
How you structure it. Yep.
yeah, you've been giving me money for 2 years now. I pay you every time. You look at my deals. You can't lose on my deals because I know how to do direct to seller marketing.
Exactly.
It behooves you. Let's put it on the back end. So because you asked me if I need more money, I'm actually scared to borrow more money because I'm broke all the time because I'm writing checks for $25,000 to $35,000 a month just in interest, and this deal is not going to close for the next 4 to 6 months. Let's put all that on the back end. No problem, Chris. I'd have did that for you a long time
And
ago.
when you have the track record, but here's what's important though too is that at the end of the day, the deals you do are a direct reflection of your skill set, right? So the more that when you have that track record, right, with people, but my running joke with my lenders are like, I'm not going to keep you up at night worrying that I won't pay. I'm going to keep you up at night hoping I don't pay so you can get the deal. Like, because you're like, hey, you're in such a good safe
That's
position.
exactly right because you bought it with a lot of
such a-
equity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you bought it at wholesale prices.
Yep.
Elementary school. So high school is media money, which is you had the fast, medium, and slow money. Fast money is wholesaling, medium money is flipping. Now you work in the progression, elementary school, junior high, high school. Now you're stacking a lot of cash because you're making big rips. Now you have a what problem? A tax problem.
Tax problem, absolutely.
Now it's time. That's the evolution. That's the entrepreneur real estate guy telling me, hey, buddy, now you're ready for slow money buying whole real estate.
Right.
Because you got a serious tax problem. You can go give 100,000, 200,000, whatever it may be to Uncle Sam, or you can just take that 100, 200,000. Let's go buy a piece of real estate, but we're going to buy it right because we're going to take it from one of the wholesaling pipeline that we have from direct to settlement, elementary school. And then if you don't really want to, you can raise money now and keep your own money and not even put your own money in there.
Right.
Really, that's a slick way of doing it. If you keep all of your own cash and you raise money for slow money,
right,
and you still don't pay taxes and you keep your cash.
My cash is defense.
Yeah.
I've always treated my cash as defense. Other people's money is how I play offense.
Yep. And I think that's a really good strategy because I don't think it's smart just to deploy all of your personal cash all over the place because when the market pulls back like it's now, I know a lot of rich guys that had a lot of cash that are absolutely broke right now.
Yeah.
Their money's out in all kind of deals that are not performing.
Correct. And so you're property rich cash poor.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's better to use OPM on your buy and hold and just keep your cash.
Well, I think that's critical.
Yep. So that's now buy and hold is slow money.
Yep.
So you've been wholesaling, you've been flipping, you've been raising money for probably going on say 3 to 4 years. And there's a time cycle on this too, by the way. Wholesaling is usually a 1 to 2 year life cycle to master. So you're really good. Flipping's about another 2 years. You're about 4 years in. And in year 5, that's when you should start getting into slow money and start buying rental properties.
Yeah.
Now, say you're 5, 6 years deep, and you've bought hundreds of doors now. What's the next evolution after that? After high school, college, land development. That's where all the big boys play. That's why you see me. I'm building neighborhoods all over remember I got 3 neighborhoods going in Louisiana. I got 1 in Alabama going. I'm buying raw land and I'm developing neighborhoods because I know how to buy land at wholesale prices. I know how to raise private money. I know the construction process.
Right.
And I've done buy and hold, and now I'm going for bigger flips, and I have a lot more confidence because I went through this whole cycle.
Right.
But I've been doing this for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started in 2014. Mm-hmm. See? And that's slow money. And I tell people, like, you don't want to start with land development, but you're not going to get super rich wholesaling, flipping properties. You're going to have a badass income and make a lot of money. But if you want to make millions of dollars, you eventually got to get into land development.
Well, and I think it's important for people. So I have some clarifying questions for you on these. So I think it's important for people to understand because you get so many people, again, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I saw someone on YouTube or TikTok. Now I want to invest in real estate. When you ask them what they want to do, oh, I want to get into development. I want to build apartments from the ground up. And I'm like, do you own the house you live in? Do you, you know what I mean? Like, have you bought a house before? Like
Yeah.
type of thing. So it is critical because yes, you can make money in real estate. You can make a little bit, you can make a lot, but you can also lose a little bit. You can lose a lot.
Yep.
And so that's where it's one of those things where people, they want to jump the gun. But one question, you talk about how it's like, hey, rentals are slow money.
Yep.
Although you're getting money on a monthly basis, it's transacting monthly. Why would you classify that as slow, even though the money's coming in monthly?
Because a few rental properties are not going to change your life, for one, and a couple $100 on a rental property is not going to change your life, first of all, and secondly, dude, you 30 days out from having a $10,000 bill from a tenant destroying your house, and you made $6,000 in positive cash flow
Right.
that whole year. Now you're back. You're back. They pushed you back a year and a half.
Exactly.
So and I tell a lot of people this, I don't look at real estate for cash flow. If I want to make cash flow, I'll buy my business. My wholesaling flipping business is my cash cow, not my rental properties. I buy rental properties for first and foremost depreciation, so I don't have to pay taxes. That's the most important thing. Why I think rich people just go dump money and they buy stuff that don't even make sense just so they don't have to give it to Uncle Sam.
Right.
First and foremost, depreciation. Second, it's the best store of value.
It's inflation hedge.
It's an inflation hedge. 3, inflation hedge. 4, principal pay down. 5, then cash flow. So you understand that's the order of importance.
Right.
Logically, depreciation, best store of value, hedge against inflation, principal pay down. I forgot to say that, principal pay down, and hopefully we get some inflation. And then last but not least, hopefully it cash flows.
Yeah.
And in some years it does cash flow, but then you have a metal roof, you got to change out on a trailer that cost me. I had a metal roof on a double wide I have on a waterfront property in Falls River, Louisiana. That cost me $6,000.
Yeah.
That's probably what I make on that thing the whole year.
Well, and that's important. So a lot of people, again, they're thinking passive income. This is, financial freedom, all these things. There's variations. They don't realize that real estate, especially in the single family space, but even in others, is a game of inches where it's, basically it's a slow roll until suddenly. Those are things like when you've got all those things start compounding. You've got the amortization is a huge part. When that starts compounding with appreciation, you're like, all right, then I got a little bit more wiggle room, right?
Right. Rents go up.
All those things. And so my gray haired guys, they're really big on the inflation hedge part. They're the ones who are like, when they're watching what the government's doing right now, they're like, all I want is to buy more properties because all I know what's going to happen is just inflation. And so, which is huge. And because businesses aren't in inflation hedged.
No.
And so that's an important thing. Businesses aren't the end all be all. They each serve different purposes.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to play 5-year game when you're buying a piece of real estate like that. I just bought a 67 unit mobile home park in Brookshaven. I'm not trying to worry about if I get distributions. That's a 5-year play. I knew the rents. An old man had it for 22 years.
Right.
When we bought it, his rents are at $650. Market rent is $850 in that area.
Yeah.
I know that we can slowly go up and damn near take the rents from $32,000 to almost $50,000.
Right.
Because we can go from $650 to $850, and we can add 12 more units in there. That's going to take a long time.
Yeah,
it's going to take overnight. Yeah, and then there's someone there that need to be renovated, and then you have people that destroy some of the units.
People move out.
They move out. I had a fire 2 days ago. I had a fire. I don't know if you saw on my social media. I posted a park owned in Indiana, 2 parks owned in Indiana. One of them, I just finished renovating. Kids were shooting bottle rockets into the unit. It caught on fire and burned to the ground.
Of course they did. But in those things, and so a lot of times with rentals, I'm like, look, if you're depending on them too soon, making it a quick cash play for the cash flow versus that longer term thing, when you depend on it too soon, that's when you put it at risk, right? You're going to be property rich, cash poor, or for example, they get in there, rents are $650, they immediately tell everyone it's going to be $850, and then everyone moves out. Right? Because they're so cash flow hungry versus being willing to look at the big picture and saying, hey, this is going to be a bigger, longer play.
Yeah. I mean, they got to stop looking at it as a piggy bank and look at it as like putting money in the stock market and it's retirement. Like, you really ain't going to make no money on those properties until they paid off.
Yeah.
You making money off those properties by not paying taxes in the beginning. In the beginning, you're using depreciation to not pay taxes to offset your fast money, using your slow money to offset your fast and medium money.
Yeah.
And then you're hoping in 10, 15 years, you maybe have it paid down or paid off. That's when you really start making money. And you get the really net effect of buying real estate, where if you got it paid off and then you do a cash out refi and you refinance the whole thing and you maybe paid $1 million for it. Now it's worth, 10 years later, it's worth $1.5 million, or let's say $2 million.
Yeah.
And then you refi and you pull out $1.6 million tax free.
Yep.
And you start all over again.
Hey guys, Courtney and Fricke here. We've got Aussie Steve. And look, if you have a deal that needs to get moved, Southeast Louisiana, even in South Mississippi, we're your folks. We are the largest dispo company, really in the greater New Orleans area, even Southeast Louisiana. We have great contacts in South Mississippi as well. Steve, why do we move more deals than others?
Just we're very deep in this market, so Greater New Orleans can be really confusing for national wholesalers. The comps are hard. We change block for block. We got flood zones. We get a lot of hurricanes and the likes, and just a lot of the national platforms don't have the buyers on their list. So we are deep with buyers, but we're deep with relationships, which is really important in this market. So we love JVing with out-of-state investors.
Like I said, we do a ton of business with other investors. So go to homebuyerlouisiana.com/Courtney, fill out the information, we'll get in touch with you and we'll move this deal along. Right, and those benefits. And so that's a huge part, but again, everyone is so like, hey, I want to leave my job today
And
on
live,
rentals.
and live off my cash flow.
Yeah, I've had rentals so I got in the industry in 2014. I've had rentals, I think I started getting into around 2017, somewhere around that time. I've never taken a penny from them because they're still, they're still growing up and I don't want to depend on them too soon. So I think that's great. I think, all of this is critical for people to understand whenever they're like, hey, I want to get into real estate. Hey, you need to understand, I started flipping and then I got into wholesaling and then I got into rentals, right? But all of those things are important because a lot of people, I had a guy a few days ago was like, hey, I'm looking to buy my first property. He was wanting to buy a completely termite infested property. I'm like, hey, look, first of all, not for your first deal. And then like, be careful, right? Again, you can get taken out. Another thing is during the cycles, those different things matter. There's a lot of flippers right now who are struggling.
Yeah. Right.
And so like different strategies have different strengths in different cycles.
A lot of wholesalers are struggling too. Some of the biggest games in the business, biggest business in wholesaling all stopped because they did that magical word that everybody thinks is cool on Instagram: scale. Yeah. Scale.
Yeah, I spoke at a mastermind in New Orleans a year ago, maybe. And it was you would know the people in the room. The number one conversation. So I got there, I spoke somewhere around lunch. I got there an hour early, stayed a little bit afterwards. The number one conversation in the room was descaling.
Yep.
Because everyone was like, there's so much struggle with scaling, and so scaling is a sexy word, but I want to take that to transition to my next one. Everyone's like scale, staff, overhead. All the people who are struggling right now. Look, during COVID, I had 7 people on my team. I had an office that we were using. I scaled back. Now it's just me and a handful of partners. Some deals it's deals by myself. Some deals it's deals with different partners. And so I've scaled with partners since 2020. Yep. Let's talk about your view on partnerships and things like that.
I love this beautiful question because I did the scaling thing. I was like, you guys are stupid. I did it. I tried every model. Backyard. There's 3 ways to wholesale. Backyard wholesaling nationwide. And then I created what I call a hybrid, which I'll get into here in a second once we finish talking about scaling. You get into what's called the what's the word I'm looking for? When you start scaling like that, especially in wholesaling, I'm fumbling my words here, but let me back up. So what is scaling? Scaling is when you can drive top line revenue but keep your bottom line
economies of scale,
the same, right? That's scaling. That's like a true scale where you're profitable. Okay, you stopped your bottom line overhead right here, but your revenue keeps going up. But if you scale and your bottom line revenue just matches this, that's not scaling.
Look, if you're 20% profit, it'd be a whole lot less stress if you just stayed 20% profit at a lower.
That's right. And the word I was looking for, I was telling you guys, you get into the law of diminishing returns, right? So what happens is wholesaling has its like peak. I would say the best wholesaling and flipping business is probably do in between $1 million and $2 million bucks. Anything beyond that is too cumbersome, and anything below that is you're leaving money on the table. So I found $1 million to $2 million in a wholesaling business.
Talking gross or net?
Gross.
Yeah, and
Gross
that's
revenue.
annually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you should you should be at about a 50 to 60% net profit.
Yeah.
With a smaller staff. That's where I found to be the best profit range, or gross revenue range, that where I'm still really profitable. I try to go beyond that. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Now, back to what I was telling you about backyard wholesaling nationwide and what I've called hybrid, what I've done, because I've done the backyard, did well. I did the nationwide. I was like, this is not fun. It's too cumbersome because you're trying to close people over the phone, send people who take pictures, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, how can I scale this without scaling it and make a lot of money and keep my overhead down?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, not having a boots on the ground makes it tough. Why don't I partner up with the best students that I have in my program in the markets I want to be in? I'll pay for the marketing, or I'll get, in the beginning, I was paying for all the marketing. I take the leads and I just send the best leads to them in their market. Then they go with no office, with no, a transaction coordinator, disposition manager,
Right.
all this stupid stuff that you hear.
It's just them being salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said, they can just go lock them up. And why can't my acquisition guy do disposition?
Right.
I asked myself that for years. All these guys, that's the acquisition section, that's the disposition. I do both.
Right.
It's just a phone call. It's not that complicated. So I would send the best leads. I end up having about 4 partners about 4 years ago. We're doing good. We're doing about $2 million bucks a year in wholesaling and flipping. I had no overhead, zero. I had my girls in my office that were there for more or less for my slow money rental property, but the overhead was just my time answering the phone calls, my time raising the money for their flips, and just their time going to the appointment. That's it.
Yeah.
And
what about all the marketing stuff for that?
Yeah, I paid for the marketing, but I got paid back on the out of the deal, and it was a true fit. And I would do a 60-40 split. I would keep 60% of the.
You were funding the.
I was funding the marketing, and they did all the work, and I funded the flips. I would raise the private money.
Yeah.
I ended up flipping that because I had a couple partners go south because they kind of got lackadaisical because they didn't have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And so I stopped paying for marketing. I still do it with my partners that I'm still in business with today, but all my new partnerships right now, we're up to 10 partners all over the country. They pay for the marketing because they got skin in the game.
Yeah.
And then I feel that it gives, makes them accountable because this is their money on the loan, not online, not mine. I take the calls. I raise the private money for them. We both sign the debt for the private money, and I pay them back first before we do a 50-50 spot profit. But I do, instead of doing 60-40, I'm giving them more equity. So we do 50-50. They pay for the marketing. I raise the money. We sign both in the debt if we're going to flip it.
Yeah.
And we don't flip big properties. It's like if it needs the 20 grand, 30 grand max, we turn and burn, we wholesale. And that model is scalable, Courtney. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing it right now.
Well, because it's scaling through partners and shared responsibility.
And no employees. Right. It's just, it's 100%. Now, there is going to get to the point where I can't take any more calls. Right.
So that'll be the bottleneck, will be with the phone calls and raising the money.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, 4 missed calls. That's most of them are partners or people probably calling from my direct mail letters.
Yeah.
But you don't hire people until you can't do it no more.
I mean, I think that so many people, I can't tell you how many times I remember very, very vividly someone called me and they're like, hey, this guy went to a conference or did a mentorship or something, comes out of it learning about wholesaling and immediately hired a staff. Team. And this girl was running his office, and by month 2 she came to me. She said, we haven't closed any deals and he hasn't paid me yet. Can I come work for you? I was like, yeah, no. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but no. And so there's a level there that I think way too many people, look, all the people who are preaching scaling often have some affiliate link tied to that scaling thing that's going on there. So there's ulterior motives and all that.
Absolutely.
And so, but scaling, not everyone needs to scale. And look, I'll be very honest. I don't consider myself a business person. I may be entrepreneurial in some ways, but I consider myself more than anything a specialist in the investor world. I don't
Yeah.
want to scale a
I
business.
like that. It's a specialist in the investor world.
Like, because I don't want to have staff. I don't want to scale it to certain. I'm like, look, there's a certain. But people are all like, oh well, I have to, because that's what I was sold. I was sold
That's
that
what
I
you
had
were.
to scale.
That's what you were told. That's what I want you guys to understand. That's what you were told by the Instagrams. You don't. You're not supposed to work in your business. That's beneath you, Chris. I had so many gurus. None of these guys are in business anymore. I'm way beyond them now. But they would like, why are you working in your business?
Yeah.
Because I make a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's also the blue collar roots, but it's like a level there that people are scared of work, right?
Yeah.
I'm too good to work, right?
Exactly.
But it's and if I don't have an executive assistant or a team to
Or
delegate to,
C-suite.
yeah. And so there's a level there that, I had to come to that realization that I don't want to have a business that I own, but you have to make
Yeah.
that difference there. But when I started meeting in people who were full-time investors versus business owners, because I realized business owners chase profit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I was ultimately chasing things like cash flow, amortization, appreciation, the things that are in my investments, right? They're very different. They're very, very different.
Yeah.
And so, so I love this idea of scaling with partnerships. I've been doing it since 2020, so for the last 4 years. And, not all partnerships have gone,
Sure.
to
Sure.
plan. And so any suggestions on vetting partnerships, any
Yeah.
lessons you've learned with
Absolutely.
that?
And I would say the partnership thing turned into the Allies brand, by the way. That's how I created Allies. No friends, only allies. I don't work with people because I think they're cool or they're funny
Right.
or I just like them. I work with them because they have a unique skill set that I don't have, and they give value in a way that I can't.
Yeah.
Right. So to answer your question, you should not be partnering up with your best friend from high school because you think they're cool.
Or your family member just because
Or
you
your-
always want to win.
Yes, because you come from their body, right?
Yeah.
Or you come from theirs. You partner up with. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I'm kind of I'm an over the top kind of guy. It's not for everybody. A lot of people probably don't like my personality, but I'm a driver. I'm a high D. It took me years to realize that because fuck man, I don't really get along with a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's because high Ds are drivers. Take the disc personalities. They're really good at just like pushing the needle and getting
moving it along.
right. And I realized if I tried to partner up with another high D person, even though I liked them, it never worked.
No.
So the best partnerships for me are people that are exact opposite. Usually introverts. Dude, I work so good with introverts.
Right.
I love
They don't want
them.
to be the face. They want you to be the face. Yeah.
Yes, they want me to be out there promote sales. What I'm good at, Courtney, I drive revenue.
Yeah.
That's all I do all day. I can drive. I can look and see where are the gaps or where we can make money. I can see the strategic advantage and hit the gaps but I'm not thinking about all the things behind me that have to be put in place to make that happen. And that's where an analytical style personality comes in, who's a spreadsheet guy.
Yeah.
Like my best partner, Kyle, he's been with me for 7 years out of Panama City. Matter of fact, he just won most honorable ally at my event. I gave him a big plaque and a big Bowie knife and love the guy. And he's not somebody that I would even ever hang out with. Yeah. But I love the guy because we made a bunch of money together because our personalities are like love when it comes to business and relationships.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's critical. That was a mistake I made, was I partnered with someone who we were too similar, right? Yeah. But then I've learned to partner with people. It's like the idea of I never want to go to the office. Very similar. I'm going to be driving revenue. I'm going to be building relationships. I'm going to be doing that. And then I have a partner who doesn't want to leave the office. And I'm like, excellent. They want to be back pushing processes and getting those repeatable processes down. And I'm like, excellent, you can do that, right? And I've also partnered. One of my best partnerships was I partnered with a business owner. I'm not someone who wants to own a business and be thinking about staff, scale, all that. Yep. And I'm like, I'm happy to partner with that, right? Yep. But that's not what I want to build. Yep. So let me ask, because I want to be cognizant of time.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good.
Look, anytime when it comes, so with these partnerships, you're in different parts of the country, right? Any markets that you're enjoying right now?
That I'm what?
Enjoying.
Man, I just partnered up in Kokomo, Indiana. I probably shouldn't be saying that,
but you're and so you're in Indiana.
Yeah, okay. We are crushing it over there.
Okay. I know you're in the Florida market.
I'm in the Florida market. I do a ton in Baton Rouge. I do a good amount, a ton in Lafayette. Dallas, Texas. I'm over there.
Yeah.
Where else am I at?
So you're doing these different markets. Maybe you understand what I'm talking about. But every time I go get in a room where it's national people, I struggle to justify Louisiana.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. So
You see what I'm saying?
yes, so if you can be a successful real estate investor in Louisiana, you are a bad mofo. You are a bad mofo. Meaning, dude, this is a hard market. We are the second to poorest nation in the whole union behind Mississippi. We have the worst demographics. We have the worst migration patterns. We have 4.7 million people that live in Louisiana. We lose 50,000 people a year to job transfer, people trying to go chase better opportunities. This ain't the best state to be in. And I just had my mastermind in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've been asking my wife, why did we in Louisiana?
Yeah.
Why?
I frequently go down to my mentor down in Tampa. I was just there. I go there from 2014 to 2019. If a house was worth 100, it doubled.
Yep.
From 2019 to 2023, it doubled again. So it went from 200 to 400. And I'm sitting here. I did this podcast at one of my mentors, one of my top 5 mentors' house in Sarasota. This guy is 77. I go to his house that he bought in Sarasota in 1985 for 185,000, which back in 1980s, 185,000 was a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It's worth near 10 million today. And I'm like, I want to just throw this, I'm just, part of that though is he bought a great house in a great location.
Yeah.
The land is what's going up.
Yep.
The land's not going up, and I guess we can make a joke about it's going down.
Yep.
Technically it's, sinking, but we have the hurricanes, and I really, it is hard to justify staying in Louisiana some days.
Yep.
We're on the bottom of a lot of lists. We can't catch a break with, hurricanes, tornadoes,
Insurance,
all that. Insurance prices. So tell me, with your partnerships, was there anything that was driving that behind the whole Louisiana? I can't just stay here. Talk to me about that.
So I did all that for one, to scale a wholesale and flipping business. I knew I could make a lot of money, but I wanted to be in the areas that I knew that I could make money, but also had to make sure I had really good operators. So I just didn't partner with anybody. It was people that were studs that were in my program or I met at masterminds. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. But was there a driving factor with scaling with these partnerships because of what Louisiana is?
Yes. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna be here much longer. I'll probably be here maybe another 5 years max, and I'm slowly doing it part time. I mean, I have a house in Destin, Florida, on the beach in Gulf Shores. We go to Gulf Shores all the time. We travel a lot. I'm out of. We're out of here once a month, sometimes twice a month. I'm going, but I want to create enough strategic partnerships all over the country. I have enough money coming in that makes sense.
Streams of income.
Yes.
Right? There's streams of income, and so it's important to understand. Streams of income isn't e-commerce. Real estate, this business, that business, this bit. No, it's a lot of streams of income from similar, fields.
Correct.
But the idea there, though, I mean, there's a level there that I was talking with I was speaking the other day at something with and one of the local representatives, state representatives, was there, and the conversation I had with them was Texas, all the Gulf states, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. They're all killing it economically right now. Even in the difficult time, they've just been thriving.
Yep.
And the only one not thriving is Louisiana.
Louisiana. Yep.
And so a lot of people are asking that question right now. Do I keep my investments here? The stuff that you own here in Louisiana.
Let's talk about that, because I'm just be honest with you. I'm slowly selling off everything I got in Louisiana. I'm moving to Tennessee in the next. I just had.
It looked like y'all were shopping out there.
I was shopping real estate. I have 3 partners. I got one in Nashville, I got one in Dixon, and I got one in Chattanooga. Yeah. And I'm set. That's why I got 3 just in that state, because I'm setting up shop. I'm going to Tennessee.
Well, and Tennessee's no income tax, right?
Yep.
So there is a level that I'm also shopping in Florida. My trip just there in Tampa, and so
that's a great market.
There's a level there. I've been going to that market for years. I have a deep level of support out there and partners, whatever. I could raise money in a heartbeat.
You're well connected.
I literally went out there, and one of them were like, "Hey, I'll sell you one of my properties with favorable financing," and I'm like, "What can you ask for? What more can you ask for?" But there's something to be said, and my biggest thought is, I'm not necessarily giving up my stuff in Louisiana quite yet. I am going to work both markets.
Yep.
But there is a level. My biggest question is return on my skill set.
Mm-hmm. That's so good.
Because literally when I was out there in April, I was supposed to fly to go speak before there's a conference. I was speaking the day before. And so it was like a Thursday event. I was flying out on Wednesday and the weather was getting bad. And I was like, there's no way my bird's going in the air. I'm like, so I just at the last minute started driving. That was the day we had that tornado down right outside of New Orleans. And back in April, and so on the drive there, I thought I was going to listen to podcasts, catch up on some book. No, I had phone calls all day long with all my 5 different property managers checking in on all my properties because I'm like, the freaking tornado hit my
Yep.
hometown. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, we can't catch a break, right? And on top of that, we've got population decline, insurance crisis, all these things. And then to go there and hear about, the guy who bought a house for 185. And so I literally asked him, one of my gray haired mentors, I said, do you believe location matters for someone's portfolio? Like, I know that sounds like a stupid question. And he goes, well, every time I go to speak in Los Angeles, one guy says, I have to introduce him. And so he goes, this is Pete. He made me a multimillionaire because in the 80s, I had 15 properties in Hollywood and he told me not to sell. And now they're worth, all this. And he made me a multimillionaire. And Pete smirked back and he goes, well, no one in Ohio has ever told me that. So I think it's important because, yes, it's a part of don't sell, like that was an equation, but it was also location. Because again, the people who bought in Cleveland in 1985, and still have today, they may not be multimillionaires, right? Just because of the level of appreciation or whatever. It just depends, right? And so there's a level there that I don't know fully what it'll look like for me, but I started buying in South Mississippi and I'll still own some there, but I'm considering now it's not gonna be easy because those are again, each new markets have tried to beat my butt before. So it's
Yeah.
like that's where it's important to have the right allies and partners. And so that's one of the ways I'm looking into that. So
Yeah, that's a good move, and I think it's just smart. I mean, if you're not paying attention to what your state's doing, Louisiana is not looking good at all. I mean,
and it's driving a lot of people and a lot of money out,
yes,
right?
yes,
And so now at the same time, it can create some opportunities,
sure,
but I'm being very selective
yes,
to get the prime locations.
that's right.
And so, all right. So to start to land the plane here, it's a change in market. We're in and here in Louisiana, it's a tough state. But different markets in different places are having different impacts. Are you pivoting in any way other than considering other states right now?
In what way? Like financially?
Whether it be strategies that you're doing, like I know a lot of flippers who are sitting on the sideline. I know people who, you know, there's a lot of different things, people, but is there anything that you've been doing that you've pulled back on or that you started doing more of?
I stopped buying whole rental properties. I mean, from 2017 to 2023, I bought 19 mobile home parks.
Yeah.
It's a lot of slow money.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake I made when the market pulled back in 2023. I want to tell this and end with this because it's so important. It's the biggest mistake I made in real estate. I was making so much money, Courtney. I was making $200,000 or $300,000 a month from my wholesaling, my flipping, my consulting, my coaching, my masterminds, my wife being a realtor. When I would buy a mobile home park, I wouldn't raise any money for the capex because I had so much cash that I would rehab all the trailers with all my money because I needed a place to park it. Did that for 4 years, and then when the market pulled back, and I wasn't making a couple $100,000 a month anymore from wholesale
All your
flipping.
money stuck in properties.
All that money stuck in properties. I was thinking in my mind, I'm just going to refinance when everything stabilizes and raise the rent. Well,
Yeah.
2/3 through rehabbing everything. Thank God I was almost done with everything. I got about 24 trailers left to rehab out all my portfolio, and I'm done. Like everything is completely done.
Yeah.
Probably less than that. Probably about 18.
Add one more for the fire. Well,
Yeah.
that might be a new unit coming.
Yeah, that's right. So I put all that money in there, and the market pulled back, and I still had trailers to rehab, but I didn't stop rehabbing the trailers. So I burned through a lot of my personal savings cash because I wanted to get it done. And that was a lesson. Like always use OPM.
Yeah.
Don't freaking
So
use your
then
money.
that being
Back to what you just said about, hey, you look at your cash as
defense.
defense.
Yeah.
I didn't. I look at it now as defense. I wish you'd have told me that 5-6 years ago.
Well, and it was learned from hard lessons,
Yeah.
right? Because you can be property rich, cash poor.
Yep.
But how much of that is your own money that's stuck in those? And I went and for my YouTube channel, I picked an opinion I wanted to film like a little 5-minute segment. I'll probably grab this from you afterwards. But what are your views on, debt or free and clear on rentals? So I'll grab your thoughts
Yep.
on that. But I got a whole bunch when I was at a conference with some of these old school, right? 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years in the game. And I filmed them 5 minutes or less. What are your thoughts? It's very interesting. But one of the biggest things they said is when money is close to home and working at home, you really only make like a 5% return. Meaning when it's a free and clear asset, your return on money is like 5%, but it's really safe because, well, I mean, it's you, the operator, right?
Yeah.
But when you can make a higher return when you send it out, but it's more risky, right?
Yep.
Will that operator perform? You have less
Right.
control, all that. And so it's interesting, right? But at the end of the day, it's a lesson how to learn the hard way,
Yep.
right? And so, all right, interesting. So I told you this question ahead of time. If there's one lesson that if you learned sooner, what is that lesson that would catapult your career if you would have learned it sooner?
I wouldn't, I would have joined more masterminds because I had to figure a lot of stuff out on my own. I think hiring a coach is good, but you got to be careful right now because there's so many scam artists. But a true mastermind that costs a lot of money to get into.
What does that mean for you? Like, is that, how would you define a mastermind? Like, what
Well,
are some key elements that you would
the,
look for?
the true first mastermind I went to was in 2017. I went to Grant Cardone's first 10X conference, his first one. It was only 1,500 people there. I paid 10,000 per ticket to be at the very front. I sat next to Michael Jordan's mentor for 2 straight days, Tim Grover, and we talked 2 straight days.
I think I met you in 2019 or 2018 at a 10X. It was the only one I ever went to, but
Yeah.
y'all had, it
I
was the one y'all
sponsored it.
sponsored.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it was 2019 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that was something like that.
So that was expensive, right? But man, I got around super high performance people that were no bullshitters. They're trying to help, and that was more of a. Now Grant stuff is huge. It's a conference now, but it was a conference back then. But 1,500 people was still small for what he does now. I wouldn't get into rooms like that. I would get into rooms that are 50 or less that are expensive to get into. Because if you guys are going to sit there and pay college, send your kids to college or pay to go to college and spend 70, 80, $100,000 to get a college degree, and you ain't wanting to spend $5,000 to go sit in a room for 2 straight days with people that are multi millionaires
Well, and the critical part is that you're in a room with people who are actually doing
who've
things.
done it.
So I used to spend 30 grand a year to be in masterminds. We'd meet 4 times a year, stuff like that. And I would be around other people who were doing it, and we would improve each other. We'd collaborate, but we would improve each other because we were all learning because we were in the streets together, and we could, But I think what's important is, I'll go to 6 to 10 conferences a year.
Yep.
But like, how many of those conferences are there? You want to be careful not being in a room where you're the, smartest one in the room.
Yep. That's right.
Or the richest.
Yep, for
You want to
sure.
be in rooms where you're with people who are moving and shaking because that's where you go learn is from the people who
Yep.
are in the trenches,
Yep.
not the has-beens or the
Right.
dreamers.
Yeah. And I would finish it with, if I wish I'd have known my fast, medium, and slow money and my progression. If somebody would have told me this when I was 22 years old, or even when I first started buying real estate at 26, I bought my first commercial. But let's just back up to 30. When I was 31, I started buying single family homes. If I'd known about fast, medium, and slow money, depreciation, all the 5 things we talked about, what the most important thing is about slow money, and then work that progression, just that progression chart of what I just told you of elementary school, junior high, high school, so on and so forth. That saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes, probably millions, right? That's the formula.
Yeah. And I think it's important because I love asking that question because it's like, hey, what was the thing that cost you a lot to learn?
Yeah.
Right? It's usually when I ask that question, what's that one lesson that if you would have learned it sooner, you would have catapulted? It's the thing that, man, I'm flying now once I get it right, that clarity.
Yeah.
Look, I've enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise.
Before we go and you share where people can, connect with you online and learn more, any other final thoughts you kind of want to leave people with here?
I would say always keep skilling up. Like I always say, I mean, it's true. I don't just say it because I think it's cool. Like it's a philosophy I live by.
Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the biggest ones that you and I share together.
Yeah.
It's that idea that the skills are so critical.
Dude, skills are everything.
You know, tonight I'm sharing at your event here at your
Yeah.
house, and literally I said in down markets, hobbyists fail, true skills will prevail.
Ooh, so good. I
And
love
that's
that.
literally the first point that I'm living and breathing off of.
Yeah, and I would say keep skilling up, but you to really understand and be competent at skill, you understand that you've got to master the basics first and foremost, and you got to put in thousands of reps, not hundreds, thousands.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee once said, "I don't fear the man that knows 10,000 moves. I fear the man that's done one move 10,000 times."
Right.
I've done one move 10,000 times, Courtney,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm prevailed, and that's why I've gotten as far as I've gotten, and I just didn't quit.
Yeah.
I don't quit. I'm hard headed.
Yeah.
So.
I love that, man. Well, from one Louisiana folk to another, it's always good chatting and hanging out. What's the best way that folks can get in touch with you? Where do you want them to
Yeah,
go?
you can go to Instagram at Real Estate Rood and follow me there. Chris Rood on Facebook, YouTube, Chris Rood Entrepreneur. I put out content, just mindset, real estate, entrepreneur skills, everything. Come out to one of my masterminds, the Allies Mastermind I do every quarter, or this local meetup called The Alliance, which you're speaking at tonight. I do those every other month at my house, just to be around people like you and create some value and try to see where we can make some money together.
Yeah. Well, it's good stuff, man. Well, I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.